Have you ever started crying over something that seemed small, only to wonder later, why did that affect me so much? Maybe it was a scene in a movie, a song you had heard 100 times before, a stranger showing unexpected kindness, or perhaps someone shared a painful story, and before you knew it, your eyes filled with tears. For many people, crying easily feels embarrassing. Society often treats it like a flaw, a sign that you're too emotional, too sensitive, or not strong enough to handle life's challenges. But what if that's completely backward? What if people who cry easily aren't weaker than everyone else? What if they're experiencing life at a depth most people never fully notice? Today, we're exploring the psychology behind highly emotional people and why tears may reveal something far more powerful than most of us realize. From childhood, many of us receive the same message: be tough, stay composed, don't let your emotions take over, and above all, don't cry. Whether spoken directly or communicated through subtle social pressure, the lesson becomes deeply ingrained. Emotional control is praised. Emotional expression is often judged. As a result, many people learn to hide what they feel. But not everyone can. Some individuals experience emotions with remarkable intensity. They don't choose to react more strongly. Their minds and nervous systems simply process emotional information differently. Psychologists have spent decades studying this phenomenon.
Research suggests that a significant portion of the population possesses a trait often referred to as high sensitivity. These individuals tend to absorb emotional and sensory experiences more deeply than others. They notice details that most people overlook. They pick up on changes in mood. They recognize tension before anyone says a word. And because they process experiences more deeply, their emotional responses can be stronger and more visible, including tears. The common assumption is that crying happens because someone cannot handle emotion. But psychology suggests another possibility. Sometimes crying happens because a person is feeling more of what's already there. Imagine two people watching the same event unfold. One notices the surface. The other notices every emotional layer beneath it.
The expressions, the tone of voice, the hidden sadness, the unspoken fear. The second person isn't inventing emotions that don't exist. They're simply detecting more information. Their emotional radar is more sensitive. And when that information accumulates, tears can become a natural response. This helps explain why some people cry during heartfelt speeches, emotional songs, or acts of kindness that barely affect others. Their emotional system isn't malfunctioning. It's highly responsive. In many cases, what others dismiss as oversensitivity may actually be heightened awareness. One of the most fascinating aspects of emotional sensitivity is empathy. Most people can understand when someone else is suffering. Highly sensitive individuals often go a step further. They don't just understand another person's pain. They feel it. A friend describes a difficult breakup. A stranger shares a loss. Someone struggles to hold back tears. And suddenly, the emotional weight of that moment feels almost personal. Psychologists sometimes describe this as emotional resonance. The brain doesn't merely observe another person's feelings, it mirrors them. For highly empathetic people, this process can be incredibly powerful. The suffering of others doesn't remain outside of them. It enters their emotional world.
This is one reason emotionally sensitive people often feel exhausted after social interactions. While others are simply participating in conversations, they're absorbing emotional signals from everyone around them. The sadness, the anxiety, the excitement, the disappointment. They're constantly processing information that many people never consciously notice. And while this level of empathy can be draining, it also creates extraordinary strengths. These individuals are often the people others turn to during difficult times. They listen carefully. They notice what remains unsaid. They offer comfort without being asked, because they genuinely understand what another person is experiencing. Another reason people who cry easily are misunderstood involves how they process emotions over time. Most emotions follow a simple pattern. Something happens, the feeling appears, then gradually fades. But for highly sensitive people, the process can be more complex. They tend to revisit experiences long after the moment has passed. A conversation from last week.
A mistake from years ago? A memory that suddenly resurfaces. The emotional impact often remains alive beneath the surface. This tendency is sometimes viewed negatively. People may assume they're dwelling on things unnecessarily. But deeper emotional processing can also produce valuable insight. When someone spends more time reflecting on experiences, they often discover patterns, lessons, and meanings that others miss. Many artists, writers, musicians, and thinkers throughout history describe themselves as deeply sensitive people. The same emotional depth that made them vulnerable also fueled their creativity. Sensitivity allows people to connect ideas, emotions, and experiences in unique ways. It can transform pain into understanding, confusion into wisdom, and hardship into growth. Yet, perhaps the most overlooked fact about crying is that it serves a purpose. For years, tears were often dismissed as little more than emotional displays. Modern research suggests something more interesting. Emotional crying appears to play a role in helping the body regulate stress. Many people describe feeling lighter after a genuine cry. Not because the problem disappeared, but because the emotional pressure changed. It's as if the nervous system finally released something it had been carrying. Think of emotions like pressure building inside a sealed container. Ignoring them doesn't make them vanish. Suppressing them doesn't erase them. The pressure remains. Eventually, something has to give. For emotionally sensitive individuals, crying may function as a natural release mechanism. Not evidence of instability, evidence of regulation. The body recognizes emotional overload and responds accordingly. In that sense, tears are not always signs of breaking down. Sometimes they're signs of recovery. And this leads to a question we rarely ask. What if emotional strength has been misunderstood all along? Most people imagine strength as the ability to remain unaffected. Never cry, never react, never show vulnerability. But genuine emotional strength may look very different. It may be the ability to feel deeply without shutting down, to remain compassionate in a world that often rewards indifference, to stay connected to your emotions rather than running from them. Anyone can build walls. Anyone can pretend not to care. The harder challenge is remaining open, remaining human, remaining emotionally available despite disappointment, heartbreak, and loss. That requires courage. The person who cries during a meaningful moment isn't necessarily fragile. The person who tears up while witnessing another person's pain isn't necessarily weak. The person who feels deeply may actually be demonstrating a kind of strength that often goes unnoticed. The strength to stay connected, the strength to care, the strength to remain emotionally awake. So the next time you see someone cry easily, pause before assuming you know what it means. You may not be witnessing weakness at all. You may be witnessing empathy, awareness, emotional intelligence, and a depth of feeling that many people spend their entire lives trying to reconnect with. Because perhaps the strongest people aren't the ones who never cry. Perhaps they're the ones who never stop feeling. And in a world that constantly encourages emotional numbness, that might be one of the rarest strengths of all. If you enjoyed this exploration of human psychology, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe crying easily is a weakness? Or could it be a hidden form of strength?